Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure again to welcome you here to our Horizon House Diversity Awareness Program. I'm Sally Wren, the chair. And tonight, Laura Weiss from another committee totally, so just put heads up if you have a good idea, said, I have a wonderful program for you. And of course, it's Rey Pascua. And so it's my pleasure to introduce him. But before we start, again, I like to welcome you, but also acknowledge all who've gone before us and helped us clear our path, but especially the Duwamish tribe upon whose land we stand. So with that, I will start introducing you to our wonderful person tonight. It's a pleasure to have you here. Rey Pascua was elected a national trustee at the 2016 Filipino American National Historical Society Conference in New York City. He retired as president of the Filipino American Community of the Yakima Valley, and serving in 2020, serving 25 years. He organized the Yakima Chapter 26 of the Filipino American National Historical Society and the Mabuhay Foundation. The Yakima Valley of Washington State is significant as it was the locale of the first Filipino riot in the United States. I had no idea. Its Filipino Hall was elevated to the United States Register of Historic Places in January 2024. It is the first hall built from the ground up expressly for the purpose of Filipino Community Hall. Rey retired from a 32-year career as a civil servant in 2005, and and his most important role being a manager in Washington State Child Protection System. Very active in public affairs, he was a state employee union local president, a member of the United States Catholic Bishops' Campaign for Human Development and National Committee, and an emeritus commissioner of the Washington State Commission on Asian Pacific American Affairs. FANHS founder Fred Cordova credited Rey with being the author of Filipino American History Month in Washington State, a 9-year labor of love. Rey was an ally and friend to the legendary labor leader Filipino Larry Italongo, a volunteer serving under the tutelage of Andy Imutin and the United Farm Workers Union, and a veteran of the Alaskan canneries. He grew up in agriculture area within the U.S. where Filipinos earned the right to own and operate farms. He has a bachelor's degree in political science and ethical studies from Western Washington University in '72 and a master's degree from the Daniel J. Evans School of Public Administration, University of Washington in 1978. It is with great pleasure and honor that I present you with Rey Pascua.
Mabuhay, mabuhay, which is a greeting in Tagalog that says hello. My name is Rey Pascua, and I'm going to do two parts tonight. One is to tell you a little bit about the passage of Filipino American History Month here in the state of Washington, which I called the Labor of Love. And then I want to talk a little bit about the Yakima Valley and the life of the Filipino Americans there that essentially started in 1918 and now is going to culminate on Saturday, October 12th, when the Community Hall in Wapato will be celebrating its placement on the United States Register of Historic Places. We just got that designation, and so it's a grand celebration that we'll have in the Yakima Valley. The Labor of Love is the story about Filipino American History Month. And I don't know if this is going to move. If it doesn't, I'm going to tell you about it anyway. This is the moment that the person or the people who have worked very diligently on legislation get to meet the governor. They get to be the first person in the room. So you see here, Senate Bill 5865 had been passed in Washington State in the year 2019. So, what a marvelous coincidence for that year. The legislature passed the bill, and on May 7th, my son's birthday, he gets to see the governor sign the bill. So my son is in back of me in what we call the Barong Tagalog, which is the national shirt of the Philippines. My son is standing in back of me. My granddaughter is standing there giving the governor a piece of candy. And for that piece of candy, he named her Citizen of the Day. She became the Washingtonian of the day. So I wasn't complaining. So that was a great day. And on my son's birthday, and you know what? The bill took effect on July 28th of 2019, my daughter's birthday. What a great governor, you know what I mean? Next, okay, where did we go? Over. Okay, all right. Okay, Filipino American History Month in Washington State, Senate Bill 5865. I want to tell you about these bullet points. In October 1587, the first Filipino stepped foot in the United States in Morro Bay, California. That's San Luis Obispo. Basically, the first state to recognize Filipino American History Month was the state of Hawaii, when the bill was passed by both houses of the state legislature of Hawaii and signed by the governor, a female, in the year 2008. Now, 1587, that's the year, on October 18th of that year, a Filipino stepped foot onto on the shores of the United States. And what that was they were not free men by any means. What they were indentured servants on a Spanish galleon ship. We will remember that the Philippines was colonized by Spain for 450 years. And actually the Philippines was run as a colony of Spain from Mexico City. Did you know that? I didn't know that until recently. But Mexico City was the governing city for the Philippines. So Spanish galleon ships would have to come east, come to hit the North American coast, and then go south to go to Mexico City. That's where they kept all their gold that they got, from the countries that they colonized. But a librarian in Los Angeles was the one who discovered that that this was the first time that a Filipino stepped foot onto the United States in 1587. The second, so Hawaii, they did it like we did, okay? Or we did it like Hawaii did. Proper legislative processes, both houses passing a bill declaring Filipino American History Month, and then it goes on to the governor for signature. Funny thing though, I've never seen a picture of that governor signing that bill like Washington did, right? Now, the second state to pass Filipino American History Month was the state of California. And it was called Second Concurrent Resolution 48. Anybody familiar with the government in California? They have a thing called an assembly, okay, which is in, I think it's like our House of Representatives, but then it goes on to the assembly, which is the Senate. Well, they passed a resolution. They passed a resolution in 2009, the legislature. California did a shortcut. California did, do you know what they do? A state senator whose name was Yee, state senator, took that resolution and he goes to the Secretary of State office in California and says, let's make this a law. I don't want to go through all that process and stuff. So stamp it, the Secretary of State stamped it, it was a law in California. I got a funny story though. Senator Yee is currently in jail. He was running guns in Oakland. So he got caught. He's in prison right now. So much for California Filipino American History Month. But it was certified. The California law was certified by the Secretary of State, championed by Senator Yee in 2009. And then the United States Congress passed nationally the bill in 2009, and it declared Filipino American History Month. The Congress did that. In 2015, President Obama, he signed and invited over 250 Filipinos to the White House. Thelma Sevilla, raise your hand. Weren't you there? I saw you. Thelma Sevilla is here, North Seattle. And she and I had the pleasure of attending the first White House meeting celebrating Filipino American History Month. President Obama invited us there, and it was a wonderful celebration there at the White House. Now the Washington State saga began, 2016 nationally. Well, Washington State hadn't done anything on it yet. So I love Filipinos. So I said, you know what? Let's try to do something here in Washington State. I had been involved with, legislative people through the years, and so it became what we call the labor of love. In winter of 2010. Okay, well, no, it should be 2010. That's when we started the efforts here in Washington State. Typo. Basically, I had been involved with learning about the other states, Hawaii and then California. And so I went to Fred Cordova, who was the executive director of the Filipino American National Historical Society. And I said, Fred, we should make Filipino American History Month. We should at least get some proclamations here in Washington State declaring October as Filipino American History Month. And so he said, you want to do it? Go ahead. Uncle Fred. So we did. And it was a time of doing a lot of visiting of legislators, writing an appropriate proclamation, and then planting the seeds. I had some really good friends in that first year. Margarita Prentice, anybody knew Margarita? Wonderful person. Ken Jacobson. No, that's the House and the Senate. So that's all you have to know. So one in the House. Well, there were other people there also, like Bob Hasagawa and Frank Chop. Frank Chop was always there when we wanted something to do with Filipino American History Month. So I had friends in the legislature, and what we did was, but that second bullet there is very important. Charity begins at home. And so I grew up in the Yakima Valley, and my representatives, well, you guys know what Washington State is, right? Iron Curtain, right side Republican, left side Democratic. That's basically what we had there in Eastern Washington. So my two representatives and state senator were Republicans, but they were wonderful Republicans. Jim Honeyford was with us all 9 years that we worked on this. Bruce Chandler was, he's still there. He's retiring this year. And then the other one was Barbara Liss. She was there for only 1 or 2 years. And then another representative took her place. We had to develop the wordsmithing for a bill, and a proclamation in Washington State is very clear cut. You have a title of what you want to achieve. You write down a couple of whereases, maybe 5 to 10, and then therefore it is resolved. You get a conclusion. That's essentially what I did, and I wanted to make it very personal also, and so we made it that. But the first thing I asked the governor's office, and the governor at that time was Governor Gregoire, was, can we make it permanent the first time we try it? And they said, don't you dare. And I said, can't we just, they said no, because the language in legislation when you want something permanent is now and forever. October shall be Filipino American History Month, correct? They wouldn't do that. So we had to do it every year. And so in 2010, the first year that we did it, great response from Governor Gregoire. She supported it. Frank Chop and Chandler helped us on the House side, and then of course Senator Honeyford, took the lead in the Senate with other people. Legislation is that you get prime sponsors. They invite other people to sign on bills, and then you go up or down through the legislative session. What usually also happens is you're asked to testify. And so we went to the legislature, and we had community friends from West Side and Eastern Washington come and testify before. Usually it's the government committee and then the education committee that you're speaking to in committees. But we didn't have any trouble. The governor did the proclamation, and then both houses of the legislature did resolutions for us. Like I said, I asked the governor, we asked the governor if they could make it forever, but they said no, we don't want that language in there right now, so we didn't do it. a March gift and communications. I don't know what that means. So this is March in 2010, and this is the first time that a resolution was passed by the Washington State Legislature, and this happens to be the Washington State Senate. And so at the forefront, the white-haired man is my state senator from the 15th District, Jim Honeyford. Margarita Prentice is, okay, this is Margarita Prentice. Oh, what a great picture. This is my friend who just passed away 2 days ago, Frank Iragon. Anybody remember who this is? I can't either. You're going to have to remember with me, man. But, so this included, this is Brad Owens, who was he Secretary of State? Yeah, he played that. He's in a rock band, isn't he, or something like that now? There's me in my Barong Tagalog. And yes, Washington did have a Rockefeller at one time. This is Senator Rockefeller from Bremerton. Is that right? Yeah. And of course, the power couple of Fred and Dorothy Cordova. Dorothy is still the executive director of the Filipino American National Historical Society, and Fred passed away in 2016, but he was the director of and they created the National Filipino American National Historical Society. Joe, where is he? Joe Calugas, the son of, was he the only Medal of Honor winner? The son of the only United States Medal of Honor recipient in the United States, Joe Calugas Jr. So his father won the Medal of Honor for his victories in World War II. So this is a historical picture. Isn't that great? 2010, had 9 more. Had to do it 9 more times. But the inclusiveness of and the tract that you had to do in order to make something lasting, I felt that we had to do it. We had to do things that were very important. So in each of the bills, there's a distribution. Therefore, at the end, so we made sure that we put in there that we have whoever gets this bill has to go to schools, to museums, to historical societies, and even to teachers' organizations to tell them about Filipino American History Month. So I sent letters out to 60 school districts after every year, after every bill, after every resolution, to tell the school districts there is now a Filipino American History Month resolution for this year. 60 school district. I got to meet Randy Dorn, really great guy, Chris Rakedahl, great superintendent of schools. So I met with them yearly to apprise them that there's a new Filipino American History Month bill. Pass it on to your schools. Counties and cities, we sent out at least 25 to 30 cities and counties every year to let them know that there was a Filipino American Month resolution or proclamation for that year. So very intense of that. I traveled the state, and I traveled school districts and visited school districts during the 9 and 10 years. And then, of course, the most important thing is that Filipino American community organizations and communities get the word, bring it onto themselves, develop it to what it means for your area, and then we go forward as a stronger community. Volumes of work, like I said, it was work. 2000 to 2019, we had enhancements. So each proclamation, we tweaked it every year. Okay, so in the first year, we put the names of historical cities for Filipino Americans in Washington State. And during dinner tonight, we got everybody except two. Oh, we already put it up here. Yeah. Okay. Wapato, Bainbridge Island, Auburn, Seattle, Tacoma, Pateros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's one missing. Okay. Bainbridge Island, Wapato, Bainbridge, Bremerton. These. I'm sorry, I'm the one who put the thing together, so I forgot Bremerton. Where's the man from Bremerton? There he is, back there. No, Bremerton is very important because, again, that as Tacoma was and is, it's important for the armed services component there, and the contributions of the Filipinos who came in to, live there and to help the country. Special Washingtonians. This is the second aspect. I listed Filipino Americans who are known and have made a contribution to Washingtonian society. So I called it the clause that said Filipinos who are famous Washingtonians. Filipinos who are famous Washingtonians. And so Carlos Bulosan, how many have heard of him? The most famous Filipino American writer, whose most famous work was an essay that went along a Saturday Evening Post article in 1935-ish, and it accompanied a painting called The Four Freedoms, and his essay was Freedom from Hunger. But Carlos Bulosan, his most famous book is America is in the Heart. So may I give you an idea about your next reading assignment? Vicente Barrios, he basically helped create that community in Bremerton, purchased land, and gave it to the community. Julius Ruiz, we wouldn't be anything as Filipinos without, I believe, Julius Ruiz. You always have to have that writer who's going to tell you about how things are. And Julius Ruiz developed articles and newspapers and other publications. He helped the different Filipino communities in their writing about themselves. So he is such an important person. Roy Baldos and Harry Booksett, those are the two Yakima Valley pioneers who put that area on the map. They came to the United States to get an education, make money, and bring it back to the Philippines. Well, the story didn't happen. Roy and Uncle Harry ended up staying here in the United States, and we will get into the Yakima Valley story after we get through with this piece on the Filipino American History Month. Pio de Cano Sr. Was he was a labor contractor, and he helped develop the Alaska Cannery Workers Union, the cannery salmon industry. He recruited workers to work up there. But his most famous contribution to Filipino American history was a lawsuit that he brought. In 1937, the state of Washington passed a bill that said Filipinos are aliens, and therefore they cannot own land or purchase even a house in Washington state. Pio Decano brought a suit in King County court, and then later on that the legal issues went up to the state Supreme Court. And so in 1941, Washington state declared that Filipinos are not aliens as far as the anti-alien land law is concerned. So Filipinos could therefore now purchase even a house, where they could live. That's Pio Decano Sr. Ernesto Mangawang. Anybody ever hear of the witch hunt during the Joe McCarthy era? Ernesto Mangawang was one of the number one targets of McCarthy. He was an avowed communist. And remember, during the 30s, the Communist Party did some good things. And Ernie Mangawang, man, I love this man. I wish I could read his eulogy of, or Larry Itliong's eulogy of him. But he was a person who was forthright in what he did and what he believed. Silvestre Tangalan was the president of the Seattle community, Filipino community, for over 20 years. And what you seek, obviously, is stability, growth, maybe some ideas that you could build on and build your community. I think Silvestre Tangalan did that. Bob Santos, anybody remember Bob Santos? Do I need to say anything more about Bob? Okay, self-righteous, a person who worked for the common person, who was probably known as Mr. International District, because that's the area that he loved so much. Uncle Bob. And does anybody know that Bernie Reyes White Bear is American Indian?
Yeah, we all know that.
Do you also know that he's half Filipino? You didn't know that, now you do. Bernie White Bear, it's a funny story. You want to hear it? I laughed when I heard about it, but basically, Bernie White Bear's father and mother were married and lived, obviously, Colville Indian, right? So they lived on the Colville Indian Reservation, Tenasket, Omak, Nespelem, Okanagan. So basically, there they were married. And then somebody decided they want to have a Chinese restaurant in Electric City by the Cooley Dam. Yeah. So you know the story already? Why don't you finish the story, Tom? Yeah. So basically what happens was they hire a Chinese cook, right? Guess what happens? The Chinese cook and Bernie's mother fall in love, right? So the Filipino and his 3 half-Indian children are left out in the cold. The Indian mother and her Chinese husband take over the restaurant. That's Bernie Whitebear's story. And Bernie comes over to Western Washington and does a whole hell of a lot of good things for the American Indian population. Yes. Fred and Dorothy Cordova, do I need to say anything more about them? Every year we have a theme in Filipino American History Month. This year's theme is a history of struggle, socialization, and victory. Okay, so it talks about feeling the negativity and then rising above that. But friend Dorothy, they created. So 2 years ago, our national theme was 1972 and the beginning of Filipino American history, Filipino American studies in the universities. The the beginning of Filipino American Studies, 1972. 1982 was the creation of the Filipino American National Historical Society. The creation of the Filipino American National Historical Society. And 1992 was the creation and the advent of Filipino American History Month. So we in those that 40-year period, we recognized those three very important events for Filipino Americans. Dolores Sambonga, anybody knows Auntie Dorothy? First woman to graduate from the University of Washington Law School. She went to school at the U of W when they didn't even have a bathroom for women. Right? They only had a bathroom then for men at the U of W Law School. And then Velma Valoria. Anybody know Velma? State representative, represented which district? 43rd or 11th? See, I was wrong on that one. I'm glad somebody was here who knew it was the 42nd?
Someone over there said it.
Okay. Okay, so Velma Valoria was state representative for at least 8 years. And then now she lectures at the University of Washington. So two aspects were I put historical cities and then special Filipino Washingtonians from 2010 to 2014. And a funny thing happened in 2015. They put my name on the special Washingtonians. So I think my state senator had something to do with that, Jim Honeyford. So I thank him the rest of my life for that. Okay. These were for our 2010, the 2019 bill. These were the people who really made it important. Senator Hasagawa was the prime sponsor. And of course, in the legislature, you create one bill for one house, and then the same bill moving toward the same thing in the other house. So my representative in the 15th district, Representative Chandler, sponsored the bill in the House, and Senator Hasagawa passed he was the prime sponsor in the Senate. But the Senate bill was the one that was finally passed. And I don't know what happened with the House. I think it was, that may have been a year where there was a lot of animosity and a lot of work on educational bills in 2019. But the 2019 bill, we went to Olympia 4 times to testify before legislative committees, and it wasn't passed out of the House of Representatives. So the Senate bill was the one that finally made its way through the legislature. I went to Olympia 6 times from the Yakima Valley, from January to May of that year. They're not just mere words in a declaration. They're law from now on. But what happened, it got to the last day of the legislature. And on the last day, they have a thing called closure. And we Filipino Americans are very lucky because of a man named Frank Chop. When I write my book, I will put him as the key person in this saga, because on the last day, there were something like 50 bills that they were still considering in the House, and they could only come out with 5. They were going to have passed only 5 bills in the time that they had left in that session. I get a phone call. I get a phone call, and it's she was a Filipina, and she said, "Ray, you're going to be very happy. You're going to be very happy in 5 minutes." I said, "Why?" And she said, "Because Speaker Chop is going to take Filipino American History Month as the last bill for this session." Yeah, yeah. So that's why he gets my vote for Man of the Year that year. But Frank Chop pulled it out of those over 50 bills, and that was the last bill that they passed in 2019. So May 7th, that's when the governor signed it. July 28th, that's when, it came into effect. So is there anything else here? No, that's not it. Yeah. Any questions? Filipino American History Month. Yes.
No question, but you should add that on the day of the signing of the bill, we were gathered in the room. All right, thank you.
Okay.
Got it, thank you. You should tell the story of when Governor Inslee was getting ready to sign the bill, and there was a group of tourists who were touring the Capitol building, and they were from China. And because Governor Locke was once a governor, it was such a happy occasion for them to see his big photo in there.
Yeah.
So unbeknownst to the legislative aide, he ushers everyone in the waiting room into the bill signing room and includes the Chinese tourists. And they didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know what was going to be happening. But all of a sudden, they had front view of the governor signing the Filipino American bill, Filipino American History Bill, and they were just overjoyed, of course. And the people who had been a part of the process were kind of in the background. And that is what we saw in the newspaper and in the news.
You know what I saw? I saw nobody's barred from coming into the bill signing. Nobody was barred. And these people just were swept in with our group. Yeah, like Thelma said, there were people who resented them being there. But hey, there are Chinese in the Philippines too, baby. Yeah. But anyway, so that's what happened on May 7th. We had a great time. And any other questions about Filipino American History Month? Yes. No other state has passed a bill since Washington State did in 2019.
Will they ever consider making it permanent?
Oh, it is permanent. That's why it's a state
Okay.
law.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I mean, I'm
And-
tired of that resolution stuff. I'd still be doing it if it wasn't a law.
And-
Yeah, it's.
And do you have time to tell us about the ship?
I will, but I want to talk about this picture. Lupe,
Yeah, Ray, I just want a quick question, because I'm really eager to hear the next part. So how many schools has this bill enabled you to go speak to? I mean, what do you get access to, or how is it implemented at the school level?
okay. That's why it was so important after every session that when that bill came out, again, there were marching orders in that last clause. So it said, a copy of this bill shall be, and it usually said, a copy of this bill shall be transmitted to Rey Pascua and or, this person for distribution to, schools, historical societies, museums, libraries, and to the superintendent of public instruction. So I took that at heart, and like I said, I met with Randy Dorn for 4 years, and with Superintendent Rakedahl for 4 years also. But they have their process and mechanisms to get the information out to the school districts. That's the important thing. The other thing, when I visited school districts, I was strategic. I went to Seattle School District, Tacoma, Wapato, the ones where there are Filipinos, and like those 7 cities, I made sure that I visited the city councils and the schools, the school superintendent, in order to get them on board so they could get the word down to the staff there.
I was confused about your reference to Obama, and that seemed to be a national bill for a Filipino American History Month.
Yeah.
But wouldn't that affect all the states and establish it?
Yeah, but yes, it was a national bill, but each state, in our mind, that has a significant Filipino American population needs to move beyond that, because it's a general statement that says, October is Filipino American History Month because of that landing in 18
1519.
57.
Yeah.
No, 1587. Yeah. So no, it's getting it proactive in our state.
I see.
And the thing now is we have 4 school districts that are really on their way to developing curriculum and making it Filipino American history a requirement, especially in those middle school years.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions over here? Here's a question.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh,
Hello.
Hi.
In your
Hi.
That's right.
in your first list of the things that when Pinoy when the Philippine first landed in Morro Bay, what does the word Pinoy mean? What does that? How do you use that?
Hey, George, you want to give him an answer for that?
It's a nickname. Okay, good.
Yeah, and it's very, not sexist, but what it's male and female. So the O represents the male, and the A, it's like Spanish specific. Pinoy and Pinay. Yes. Yes.
Having lived in Seattle for quite a while, I'm aware that there was a period of time when some of the Filipinos here in Seattle were involved with unions, and there was stuff going on with the Philippines, and when we get the history, do we get the good stuff and we get the exciting, unnerving stuff too?
No, I don't think that's a quote-unquote curriculum piece,
Okay.
in the schools. But I think it has to be in the minds of Filipinos and understand what was really going on there.
A struggle. It was a big struggle of
Well,
power.
it was, and it got into, the struggle between, the other aspect of it became the labor union issue and, the gambling trade in Alaska, and vis-a-vis Marcos's
It was a very difficult time
Right.
for the people who suffered. Yeah.
But let me tell you about this, and this is one thing that Malu and I were talking about. Bring up your name, Malu. We were on the drive up here. But basically, you had, in that period of time, as a young Filipino, you had to learn as much as you needed to in order to live. Those were the days, obviously the civil rights days, and we who were in college had enough trouble, getting ourselves recognized as Filipino American and Asian American during a time of the war in Vietnam. And how are we going to get involved again now with a dictator in the Philippines? My stance back then is I can't do anything in the Philippines. I got to take care of business here. Okay, and we tried to. That's why I love Dr. Cordova and Fred, because their vision was very straightforward. Let's build our history and celebrate each other and write our history. So, yeah. You ready for this picture? All right, what do we have here? Okay. Wow, this picture was taken probably 1933, and this is the story of the Yakima Valley. Thank you very much. I'm glad that you. Okay. Well, obviously, there's Filipino men here, circa 1933, 35, and as I said when I started, we are really looking forward to October 13th this year, because October 12th, because Filipino Hall in Wapato, Washington, is going to be celebrated. But yeah, what we have here is a history. No women. 1933, and what had happened, and it finished in 1901, was the end of the Philippine-U.S. war, and so this is that aspect of it. The Philippines was a colonized country. The United States sent in teachers. Anybody ever heard of the Thomasites? The Thomasites. That's the Peace Corps of the 1900s. The Thomasites were an educational sect, an educational group that was sent to the Philippines to Americanize the Filipinos. The language of education in the Philippines became English. They built the governmental and school system in America's image. And, the Philippines did not become independent until 1946. Okay? So, world history, or the history of America says that the Japanese were the Chinese were the first source of cheap labor in the United States. And then the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1889 stopped that. The Japanese became the next source of cheap labor for the United States. And then after the U.S.-Philippine War, Filipinos took on that role. So that's why Filipinos took over much of the industry in Hawaii, in terms of the sugarcane industry. They created the pineapple industry. And my father was born in 1908, and he crisscrossed the Pacific Ocean at least 3 times. My father was a professional farm worker, okay? Died at age 53. Married my mother when he on his last trip to the Philippines. He and my mother had a 1 or 2 week. They got to know each other and then got married. And so I was born. My father met my mother in 1949. He married her after 1 week of courting her, and then in 1950 I was born. I think 9 months later. But but my father went back and forth. He was a professional farm worker, okay, and I'd say most of these men from 1901 until 1965. Well, Tidings McDuffie. When did that? What year was that? 1937, wasn't it? Something like that. Okay, Tidings McDuffie. Before 1937. Unlimited number of Filipinos could come to the United States, okay? Then Tidings McDuffie was passed by the Congress, and that said only 50 people per year from each country are allowed into the United States. strict quota of 50, including Filipinos, which are still a colony of the United States. So that's why this is not a surprise. This is the Filipino community at that time. These are my uncles, and Filipinos came to the Yakima Valley to work, but there was one thing: they could not lease, purchase land. Okay, and so that was the struggle. In 1927, the first anti-Filipino riots in the United States, the whole country, were in Yakima. And it wasn't arms against arms, a lot of it. It was basically, let's just keep the Filipinos in their place. We got arms, and Filipinos did have arms, but there wasn't a big violent undertaking there. But there was the community. This was it. The first Filipino woman who came to the Yakima Valley came in 1932. Okay, and then in 1937, Tidings McDuffie is enacted, and until 1965, the quota was 50 Filipinos a year. Why this is important, and why the story of Pio Decano was so important, and then there was one other ingredient in there. Pio Decano did the lawsuit fighting the anti-alien land law from 1937 until 1941, when the Supreme Court said they are not aliens. They're nationals. They're Philippine nationals in the United States. And so they could purchase a house or land. This community banded together. They created, and the other thing that happened was they fell in love. They fell in love not with Filipinas, because the women weren't being allowed into the country, but interracially. There was a lot of interracial marriage, not only with Yakima Indian people, but Hispanics, Puerto Ricans, blacks. So I had aunties growing up who were not just Filipina or white. They also married white women. This is very important, because who do we have here? I thought you said his name. That's Chief Job Charlie. And he took a really great friendship to the Filipino men during the 30s. And against the advice of the Superintendent of Indian Affairs, located in Toppenish, Washington, he said, I don't care, I liked the Filipinos myself. And he convinced other tribal members to lease land to Filipinos. And then there was intermarriage between Yakima Indians and Filipinos. That was instant land, because when the tribal member is born, they're going to get their tract of land. So Pete Batten, this man right here, he married an Indian woman. Instantaneously, they had 80 acres of land that they could farm together. So there were 2 or 3 other instances of that. That was the creation of the Filipino American Community there. Defeating the state law was very important. And then they also built a farming cooperative where they bought equipment, seed, cars, and they shared it, so that when they were planting seeds or using equipment, they shared the equipment that they had. So there was a thing called the Philippine Produce Cooperative in Wapato. That helped them, continue there. And then the last thing was to get solidarity and, a permanency. They built a Filipino Hall. And Filipino Hall in Wapato, it's a big thing. It's a giant cement building. And as I said, on October 12th, and please come if you can, we're going to have a community celebration celebrating the placement of the hall on the National Register of Historic Places. So, ship. Please come on October 12th. No, that's October 24th, Thursday of this year. I wanted to tell you that a United States Coast Guard fast response cutter, 150 feet long, crew of 24. It's the 57th ship built in its series. It's going to be commissioned in Seattle at 10 a.m. on Thursday, October 24th at the Coast Guard station on the waterfront. The ship is being named for the first time. The United States Armed Forces is naming a ship in honor of a Filipino American. And the woman's name was Florence Finch. Florence Finch was born in the Philippines in 1915. She died in the Philippines in 2016, 101 years old. She was a proud Filipino. Her father was American, mother Filipina. And what she did during World War II, you know what this brave woman did? She subverted she helped the Philippine insurgency by delivering petroleum, medical supplies, and food to the Philippine troops, Philippine insurgency. So she was a proud Filipino. 60 members of her family are coming to Seattle during that commissioning. And so we hope that you might be able to come. The other thing is that I'll have Thelma stand up and tell you the other kudo that we are going to deliver to the Florence Finch crew.
I have copies.
Oh, okay.
Anybody interested?
So on October 24, the Florence Finch family will be awarded the Congressional Gold Medal. The recipients for this will be her son and daughter. And the Congressional Gold Medal, if you do not know, is the highest civilian award presented by Congress, the equivalent of the presidential honor. So the Congressional Gold Medal is entitled a Filipino Veterans Congressional Gold Medal of World War II. She's recognized for her meritorious and gallantry work as a resistance fighter covertly, and also as a member of SPARS. For those of you who are in the Coast Guard, that was the equivalent of the Women's Volunteer Reserves for the Coast Guard. It was disbanded shortly after the war, so I think in the mid-1950s. But this is why the crew has named their ship after her. So, thank you.
So
We made a few copies about this. It's for honorary funds, but we need to contact Ray because the Coast Guard is in charge, so they need to know who's coming to have you, and you need to notify them by Friday.
by Friday.
And I have all the information here and pamphlets if anyone wants one.
Will
So
you be able to give transportation maybe to the?
I'm sure something could be worked out.
Yes.
And I just want to say, Ray, you are just a wonderful treasure, and we thank you so much. You have given us so much. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sally. And I want to say that please take care of Laura. We commuted every day for 2 years to Olympia because we were both with the School of Public Administration, Dan Evans School. But Laura's a wonderful person.
And we wanted to thank Laura again for bringing us this program. Without Laura, and they're going to college together, he wouldn't be here tonight. So thank you, Laura. And thank you all for coming. And thank you again.
Thank you, sir.
It's been wonderful.